Hi homeowners, and welcome back to another video here on Just Sharika. I am Sharika, and on today's video, we will be starting episode 1 of our mortgage series with our partners at First Caribbean International Bank, CIBC. So if you are thinking of obtaining a mortgage to purchase your home, then stay tuned to this series. So here to ably guide us through this process is Mrs. Donalda Daly Martin, mortgage manager at the CIBC. But before we jump into the discussion, I'm going to ask Mrs. Martin to tell us a little about herself and her role at the CIBC.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharika, for that introduction. I am Donalda Daly Martin, and I have been with CIBC First Caribbean for over 6 years. I'm the mortgage and loans manager. I come to CIBC with from a background of housing and investment, having been in banking for quite a while and having participated as a realtor associate in the real estate market for quite some time, over 15 years, actually.
Okay, that's a mouthful, 15 years as a realtor. You know, that's
Right.
actually one of my dream professions.
Okay.
Yes, I love the business of real estate.
Right.
All right.
It's an exciting area. It's a passion of mine, actually. I even in my studies, because I'm also an attorney at law, I like that aspect of the business, and that's one of the reasons why I went to study law.
Okay, so attorney, realtor, mortgage manager, a woman of many hats, huh? All right, so we're going to jump right into the discussion. So on today's episode 1 of the series, we will be starting out with tips for first-time home buyers. So for persons out there who are in the process now, or if you are thinking of obtaining your first home, then we will be going through some tips, some do's and don'ts that you should consider on this journey. All right, so Mrs. Martin, we're going to start off the discussion with some of the do's. For persons out there who are in the process or who are just thinking but are not so sure where to start, how to start, can you tell us some things for them to consider when they are thinking or if they are in the process of obtaining a home?
Thank you, Sharika. One of the first things I would advise persons to do if they are thinking of buying a home is to connect with a professional, and preferably a relationship manager at CIBC First Caribbean, because you want to understand the process before you start, and you don't want to waste much time. And because you have so many persons already who have, and we at CIBC First Caribbean, we have been guiding persons for a while, we can help you to avoid some of the pitfalls in terms of buying your first home, because it's for first-time home owners, but even for even for other homeowners. And one of the first things you need to do is ensure that you have adequate saving to cover your deposit and your closing costs. And for that, we can guide you as to how to open an account, a savings account with CIBC First Caribbean, and save towards your goal if you do not already have a deposit in place.
Okay. So you made mention that they can reach out to one of your mortgage officers.
Right.
And that is before they are ready. So you will help with the preparation process. That's what you are saying?
Right. It is good for you to understand the process first, understand what is required
Mhm.
before you start doing anything. If you have started saving already, because a number of persons would have started saving already, because
Mhm.
home ownership is a big deal for most
Yes.
Jamaicans or for
Right.
most persons.
Right.
And so you will find persons who would have started saving already or
Mhm.
are thinking about it. What
Mhm.
I'm saying is that before you start doing any preparations or concrete preparations for you to make contact with especially if you're buying with a mortgage, you're
Mhm.
going to need to contact your mortgage specialist here or any lender, any one of the lenders at CIBC First Caribbean, because they all write mortgages.
Okay. So for the average person who is out there, say for instance, 20 something year old, a 25-year-old, thinking of
Right.
purchasing their first home, not so sure about the process, I can call CIBC to get the information and you will guide me. Say, for instance, I am thinking of purchasing my home in the next year or the next
Right.
2 years. You will guide me as it relates to how to save for that down payment, the documents to get, and so on.
Yes.
Okay.
Because firstly, and what you have to recognize also, before most, if not all, realtors nowadays will take persons to look at properties they want to ensure that you're able to afford the property that you are seeking to purchase.
Right.
So what we do is that we work with the persons, we look at your income, we look at your expenses,
Mhm.
we look at your total financial situation, and then based on that, we arrive at a pre-qualification figure for
Mhm.
you. And what that does, it saves you the hassle of having to go and look for properties that you're not even qualified for,
Mhm.
or it may be that you're looking for properties that are you can look for properties at a higher value
Mhm.
based on your earnings, based on your expenses, based on your full financial situation. And so that is why we advise that you sit and you speak with one of our relationship managers
Mhm.
first before who can guide you in the process.
Okay, so that's tip number one. So speak with
Right.
the professional. You made
Right.
mention of tip number two, which is to ensure that you have adequate savings for that down payment. And you made
Right.
mention that if the person approaches you and they don't have the necessary or the amount of money that they will need, you will guide them as to opening an account that they can use to ensure that they're saving in that account towards their deposit. So that's tip
That's
number two.
correct.
So what's tip number three?
Tip number three, well, it would come in line with what the advice that you have gotten, and say, suppose you're pre-qualified to purchase, then you get information on the documents to start the process,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
And we have our website, which is cibcfcib.com,
Mhm.
that we have a whole section there on tips of and the tips in terms of your house hunting and guiding you, so you can use that along with your relationship specialist in order to inform yourself and to make the journey easier for you.
Okay, and I will be leaving a link down below in the description box of this video of that document that you just made reference to. So for persons who are watching and you want to see that checklist that the CIBC has, I will be leaving that down below. So you made mention, tip number three is to ensure that you have your documents to start the process. Can you give us some idea of some of the documents that persons need to ensure that they have?
Okay, so we have our standard document checklist,
Hmm?
which is proof of identification, and that's like a valid ID, two references, and your TRN. and which proof of age, birth certificate, or copy of your birth certificate. Of course, you have proof of address, which normally we get with a recent utility bill that is not more than three months old, and just confirmation of your assets and debts, because in order for us to do an assessment of you, we have to know what you have and what kind of debts you have. If you're a salaried employee, then we would need letter from your employer stating your length of service, your income, the terms and payment, and where income is variable because some persons are on commission. We also take that into considerations, and your most recent pay slip, not older than 1 month usually, and if you're paid weekly, 1 full month of your pay slip. We have different documents for self-employed persons. So for self-employed persons, we also have National Housing Trust requirements because we do joint financing with the National Housing Trust. So, and the benefit of that is that you do not have to go 2 places to get your benefit from NHT. You come to just CIBC First Caribbean, and your benefit, you access both your NHT benefit and the loan, whatever difference that we're giving you from CIBC First Caribbean.
So it's a one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. Okay. Because in time past, persons, when if you should opt to go to NHT, and then here it's like doing 2 applications. So you have to go to NHT, apply for the NHT portion, then for the difference you come here. With the joint financing, you get the same benefits that you would get going to NHT, but it is processed at one location.
So the CIBC will do the run up and down on behalf of the client.
Right. So we would take all the documents from you, and then we would liaise with National Housing Trust.
Beautiful.
Right. And of course, you have depending on the type of loan that you're taking or the property that you're purchasing, then we would have additional information. But we have a checklist. We have prepared a checklist of all the standard documents that would relate to individuals depending on your circumstances, because no 2 mortgages or no 2 individual needs are the same. Right.
Okay. All right. So you would have heard some of the documents that you will need. All right. But don't worry if you don't remember all of them. I will be leaving a link to the document that Mrs. Martin is referring to, so you can use that as a guide as it relates to the standard documents that you will need to take in when you are ready to start that mortgage process. All right, so we're at tip number 4. So what's your 4th tip for us, Mrs. Martin?
All right, or my 4th, you choose you would have gotten your pre-qualification now. It's time to choose your realtor, and I would say choose your realtor or real estate agent carefully. Choose somebody who you think you can work with, and your realtor partner now will look after your best interest in terms of what you qualify for, which area you want to live in, and try and see if they can get something to match as closely your requirements as possible. We normally also work with whichever realtor partner you have chosen, so that we are all on the same page. You know, we develop a relationship with both yourself and your realtor partner, and just to ensure that you get the best of all situations.
Okay, beautiful. So get yourself a realtor. Help you with the process of searching. But for those persons who are wanting to take the process on their own, would that be a challenge?
No, that's not a challenge. It's not a challenge because um, you have adequate websites that
Uh-huh.
you can search on in order for you to look at the property.
Mhm.
But normally, if the properties are listed
Mhm.
with the realtors, you would either call the realtor who has the property listed
Mhm.
and go by yourself to, and that realtor now would arrange viewing.
Mhm.
Or if you are working already with another realtor, then that realtor would call whichever realtor has the property listed to say, hey, I have a client to see that property, and then take the client to that property.
Okay.
But usually it is good to work with a realtor partner because, or else what you'll find is that you'll be working with a number of realtors in this system.
Mhm.
And that might be a little confusing for you because it would mean that for every property that you see, you would have to have the time to go call that realtor, set up your viewing, do all of that. If you're working with a realtor partner, then that realtor partner can set up the views. They know what you are qualified for.
Mhm.
And they can call on your behalf. They can present to you the properties,
Right.
and then you can choose and say, okay, I like this one, I don't like this one, I will go and look at this one. So it saves you a lot of time, especially if you're a busy person and you don't have the time to sit and do that by yourself.
Right. And I mean, the realtor is working on your behalf. So they
Right,
know what you are looking for, as you made mention, they know what your budget is, they know
right,
the price range, the area, and so on. So they will
right.
be able to scout out what
Mhm.
works and what doesn't work. So they made the process more seamless
Right.
for the
Yes.
candidate or for the client. So
That
get
that
yourself
is
a realtor.
that 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 is right. So you're to give consideration also to the property and where is it meeting your needs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, and you have to, you know, have a realistic expectation in terms of where the property that you're seeking and based on your budget that you're searching in the areas that you are able to purchase into, so you don't waste your time again too. um, Another tip is that you're to ensure that amenities such as electricity, water, telephone, and cable are accessible to you. And then
Mhm.
again, I guess we are speaking about properties that you are purchasing, residential properties that you're purchasing, because persons might be purchasing properties for other things like agriculture. So the needs would be different.
So what if someone is purchasing a property and the necessary infrastructure is not there? Would it hinder or slow down the mortgage process?
Um, is this a residential property
It's
you're speaking
for,
of?
yes, for residential, but maybe the cable is not yet in that area.
Well, cable is not really a deciding factor, although based on where things are going now, with persons working from home and with technology becoming the go-to,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to have that. But at least you would want to have electricity, water.
Mm-hmm.
You would want to have an access to the property,
All right. So
because most financial institutions will look at that as as a plus in terms of assessment.
okay, but if the price cheaper and I see the property, a piece of land, like take for instance myself, I one day want to live on a farmstead,
Mhm.
but I see a piece of land now, say for instance in St. Elizabeth, and it doesn't have the electricity on, but I'm getting the land at a reasonable price. and I approach CIBC to say, hey, I see this piece of property. It is within my budget. I can afford it, but it does not have electricity.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things now, because you're now talking about land.
Right.
The land is different.
It's different.
Right, it is different.
Okay.
So we have land loans, but for existing homes
Right.
that we are financing, then that would be a different thing to land. We have a number of persons who purchase land, and light and water may be in close proximity, but not yet on the property, because land, and it all depends. It all depends. But what we're speaking about now is residential property. You're buying apartments, townhouses, houses to live in.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So it has to have those amenities and infrastructure.
It is advisable.
Okay.
Right.
So ensure that the property that you're looking for to use as your primary residential property has all the necessary infrastructure. So that's
right.
tip.
Pardon me, I didn't get that, sorry.
No, I said that's tip number 6.
Yes. Another tip that we give is to delay major purchases, such as maybe expensive motor vehicle or other expensive purchases that may put a strain on your budget when you are seeking to be qualified for a mortgage, because buying a home is a big deal. Most persons, your mortgage will last 25, 35 years. So it is an important investment. It's a long-term investment that you need to ensure that, you are in proper stead, and you can afford as much as possible to maintain that mortgage payment for the life of the mortgage payment. So we advise not to go into very large purchases at that time, because that will also affect your ability and the amount that you probably will qualify for in terms of your mortgage.
And Mrs. Martin, something just came to mind. I remember a coworker of mine was explaining something to me very recently of an experience that she had with someone that she knew. The person was in the process of obtaining a mortgage and got to the part where I think the mortgage was approved, but it was not yet paid over because it was a turnkey type of mortgage. And for those of you who don't know what a turnkey is, it will be explained further down in the series. So stay tuned for that one. So the type of mortgage that they were getting, the house was not yet ready, but the mortgage was approved. So the person thought that at that point, it meant that all is well. And they went ahead and purchased a brand new vehicle. And then when they realized that, it caused a problem for them getting the mortgage down the line when they were supposed to do like the final assessment. They now have an additional debt that they were servicing, and the bank actually refused to further do business with them in terms of giving them that mortgage because they no longer could afford. So the person in long and short ended up losing the house.
Oh, and that's quite unfortunate. And that's why we ask our clients and prospectives that they really stick closely to their relationship manager for advice, especially if you're going to do something like that. Because you see, the bank wants to ensure that its clients are adequately taken care of. And we don't want our clients to be under undue strain. And we have the credit bureau right now in Jamaica, and the credit bureau does an assessment of your eligibility and your financial situation, you know. So most of the financial houses work with the credit bureau in terms of whether this person, your credit worthiness is there. So you have to be very careful. And at CIBC First Caribbean, we do not want to put our clients under undue strain. So if we see that buying that CRV would put so much pressure on you that you probably would not be able to buy everyday food, we will guide you in terms of maybe you don't need that expensive a vehicle. You can maybe, based on our assessment of you, you can afford something a little cheaper. But that is the guidance that
the person was guided. They were. But I guess when they found out that the mortgage was approved, they thought that all was fine. But it is not fine until you get that key and you move into that property. Then you can say, okay, maybe you look down and you reassess your budget and see if I can afford.
Yes.
But when they got that approval, they thought all was well. So I guess maybe jumping the gun, but to talk to those persons who are watching when you are going through the process of your mortgage, ensure, as Mrs. Martin just said, don't take on any major purchases whilst you're in the process. Because even you get a stamp of approval that this mortgage is now approved, it's not completed until you move into that property when the bank pay over that money and you get your key. So just a little plunge into that.
Yes.
So sorry, Chicken, you may go ahead with your following tip.
Right. So the delay of major purchases, as we just spoke about. You're to go over the various steps with your relationship manager to ensure that you understand the process. And maybe that is what that person didn't do in terms of going over with their person to say, don't take on any additional debt, even at the stage of approval. So, and that is why we see it as a close relationship with your relationship manager or mortgage officer from the bank to ensure that you're being guided along the step, each step of the way, right? So that is very important. It's very important because most persons see buying a property, buying their first home as a very daunting prospect, or a daunting, right? So what we encourage you to do, we are here to hold your hands. We are here to ensure that you are on the right path. There will be maybe things that come up that are unexpected. There are no two mortgages that are the same. So you need to really stick with your relationship manager throughout the process and ensure you understand the process.
All right.
It is also, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It is also recommended that you work with an attorney, because as I say, this is a very big purchase. And to have somebody guide you also. So you need the realtor, the attorney, your CIBC First Caribbean, your banker, to be with you throughout the journey. And it's preferable that you use an attorney who is not the vendor's attorney. That's the person who is selling the property, for obvious reason, to avoid conflict of interest. So you would want to have your attorney will vet the documents, the sale agreement and everything, and will guide you along the way and make representation on your behalf to the vendor's attorney.
Okay, so ensure that you get an attorney. And I know persons tend to want to skip this process because of the added expense or added costs that it will bring, but it is a needed and necessary expense. So do not skip it, because you may not understand. For instance, when you get that sales agreement, some of the terminologies inside of that document, you probably won't understand it. And your lawyer will know exactly what to look out for, how to guide you, what questions to ask the developer just in case something in the document is not looking very right. Your lawyer is there to guide you. So do not skip that process because you don't want to spend the money. Ensure that you get the necessary professionals that you will need along the process. Don't skip it. They are needed. So ensure that you have your lawyer, you get your realtor, you have your mortgage officer or your relationship officer who is there at the bank to guide you so you don't miss any step. Because remember, purchasing a home, most expensive purchases that you will ever make in your life. Yeah. So ensure that you don't skip on anything because it may end up costing more in the long run.
Yes, that's true.
So that was tip number 9. Tip number 10 for us, Miss Martin.
Always read your contracts and ensure you understand the terms. And of course, this is also linking with what we spoke about before with your attorney. Your attorney would go through the contracts with you. There are contracts that if you come out of them, you have to forfeit part of your deposit. So you have to make sure that when you are entering the contract, your attorney explains everything to you. There are contracts that if your mortgages are, if your payments are not concluded within a particular period, then you start paying interest, or you might even have forfeiture clauses in those contracts. So you have to ensure that you know what you're getting in as much as possible. And that is one of the reasons also why you really need your attorney. And you also need to read the contract to ensure that you know what you're getting into.
Right, because as you said, you can lose money. And who wants to lose money this time? Huh?
Exactly. No.
Ensure that you read your contracts when you get them, all the documents that you get. Ensure you take the time out to read your documents. So that was tip number 10. Is that your final tip for us?
Well, yes, for today, although we have, as I said, on our website, we do have a number of tips because there are many tips for you and that fits your individual need and may speak to you individually. But these are the main ones that we look out for.
All right, so just to recap, our 10 tips or 10 do's when you are thinking of getting that mortgage. So tip number 1, get in touch with your professionals. So whether that's a realtor or you reach out to your relationship officer at the CIBC so they can hold your hand and guide you along the process even before you are ready. So if you are just thinking right now of getting the house maybe next year, but you're just not sure of the steps to take, reach out to your relationship officer at the CIBC and they will help you. So get in touch with your professional. That's number 1. Tip number 2, have adequate saving for your deposit. And we will be breaking down in one of our videos in the series of how you can put things together to ensure you have your deposits and so on. Tip number 3, ensure you have the necessary documents to start the process. So your TRN, your ID, pay slips, proof of income, and so on. Tip number 4, have a realtor, get a realtor. It's recommended that you get a realtor, especially if you're someone who is very busy. The realtor is there to act on your behalf and to represent you in the process. Tip number 5, is the property meeting your needs? So ensure that the property that you're looking at is within budget. It is within the location that you probably close to work or something like that. So ensure that the property that you're looking at meets your needs. You know what those needs are. So ensure that the boxes are ticked in that regard. Tip number 6, Ensure that you're buying the property with the necessary infrastructure. So ensure that the property has water, it has light, and maybe if you need the cable, because we are now living in the digital age and people need cable and internet and so on. So ensure that you have these necessary amenities on the property that you are looking at. Tip number 7, delay major purchases, and that one can never be overemphasized. As I said earlier, your mortgage will be one of the most expensive purchases that you will ever make. So you want to ensure that during this time that you are laser focused and that you don't stray. So ensure that, you know, the way they normally say delay gratification, put everything else aside for now. So if you're thinking of getting that car, if you're thinking of buying that new sofa set, wait until you get your home. Then you can think about getting those things. So delay any major purchases until you have covered this aspect of your life. Tip number 8, stick with your relationship officer. So ensure that you are following up with this person to ensure that all the things that you need to do or should be doing are being done. The person is there to guide you. Ensure that you listen to them, listen to the tips that they provide, listen to the guidance that they provide. They are also working in your best interest. So listen to your relationship officer. Number 9, work with your attorney. Don't try and scringe dollars. Get yourself a lawyer. Ensure you have an attorney on your side when you are purchasing a home. And as Mrs. Martin would have said, it is advisable that you get your own lawyer and not the lawyer of the vendor or the vendor's attorney. Get your own because there might be conflict of interest. So even though it may work out to be a little cheaper, get your own lawyer or attorney. And the final tip, read your contracts. All right, so I will be leaving a link down below, as I said, to the document that the CIBC has with further tips that you can use, because these are just 10 tips that we would have pulled from the major list. So you can look at that list to see what else that you may need, all right? So these are just the top 10 tips that you will need. So those are your top 10 do's or top 10 tips when you are considering a mortgage. All right, so in part 2 of this part 1 episode, we will highlight the don'ts when you are considering obtaining a mortgage. So until then, take care, guys. I will see you all in my next video.